Hi, guys. Good afternoon, and welcome to today's edition of The Law and You. I'm your host, attorney at law Shellon, Washington, licensed in the state of New York and in my home country, Guyana, and in the Twin Island of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome once again, guys, and it's a pleasure for me to bring you this edition of The Law and You every Saturday at 4 p.m. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about Pendente Lite Relief. And for those of you who don't know what a Pendente Lite Relief is, we're going to get into it this afternoon. But before I get into it, I just want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by Washington Law Firm. I'm the owner and the founder of Washington Law Firm. My firm is located at 155 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. And I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to all my supporters and everyone who have been referring clients to our office. I want to express my gratitude to you and say thank you once again. And I look forward for your continued support as we move forward into the end of 2024 and into 2025. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate your love and your support. Now, this afternoon, we're going to be speaking about Pendente Lite Relief. What is a Pendente Lite Relief? And Pendente Lite Relief is applicable in divorce proceedings. For those of you who don't know, once you're in a divorce proceeding, a lot of times by the time people get into a divorce proceeding, the circumstances would have changed, which means someone or the spouse might have moved from the marital residence, or most likely the husband would have stopped contributing towards the home. I mean, there are rare circumstances where the woman is the one who actually moved out of the marital home, and she's the one who is required to pay Pendente Lite support to the husband and the children. But as you guys know better than I do, that in most of these situations, it is the woman who is left at home with the children. And in rare circumstances, the woman leaves the husband with the children or child of the marriage. And then in that case, whoever leaves and leave the other party with the children, then the question is the person entitled to Pendente Lite Relief? And what is a Pendente Lite Relief? Now, remember, during the marriage, things are set a certain way. So, for instance, we are often used to both spouses contributing towards the household expenses, whether it be the mortgage or the rent, the food, and everything that goes towards maintaining a home, paying the utility bills, paying the car notes, if there's school fees to be paid, paying the school fees for the children. These are all things that goes towards supporting or maintaining a marital home. And in most cases, both parties contribute towards maintaining the marital home. But like I said, when things change, often one of the spouse leaves because it becomes difficult for two people who are no longer in a relationship to continue to live under the same roof. And I tell people all the time, it's better for you to leave than to stay in a situation where something could end up happening, something bad. Because a lot of times when people stay together after they've decided that the relationship is no longer viable, things could become very volatile. I've seen a couple of situations where 911 had to be called because the situation escalated in the home after the parties have terminated their relationship, but they're still married. Therefore, a lot of times they end up staying in the house because the marital home is most likely or most often is owned by both parties. So instead of one party going and rent somewhere, they often decide that they're going to stay together under the same roof. And I tell people that's never a good idea, because if things becomes volatile or things escalate, then one party can end up in jail, which happens a few times. It has happened in the past. So the best thing is for one party to leave. But if one spouse decide that they're going to leave, and the other one to stay at home with the children, if there are any, then there are certain conditions which has to be met. Number one, as I said earlier, during the marriage, there's a certain standard of living that is being maintained. So, for instance, the party might have been entitled to split in the expenses, or in some cases, the husband bear all of the expenses. And then once they are no longer in a relationship, most likely the party who has been contributing would want to say, well, I'm not going to contribute any longer towards this relationship. I'm not going to put money anymore into this. And if that happens, the party who is not getting the support but needs it can apply to the court for what is called Pendente Lite Relief. And if you apply to the court for a Pendente Lite Relief, what is the standard? The standard is whatever you're used to or accustomed to during the marriage. So, for instance, if in the marriage the husband was giving you $10,000 or $20,000 every month to assist you in running the family home, that's what he is going to have to continue to give to maintain the status quo. Or even if it's not that much, at least a significant portion, which is going to help the party who remain in the marital home to continue to maintain the lifestyle that was there prior to that spouse leaving. So the Pendente Lite Relief really just helps you to maintain your status quo, maintain your same lifestyle for yourself and for your children, if your children were used to a particular type of lifestyle. So the spouse who decides to leave and was the money spouse or was contributing towards the home, that spouse will have to continue. The loss of that spouse will have to continue to contribute towards the home. So in that case, guys, Pendente Lite Relief will be warranted. There are things I've seen people done to avoid the possibility of paying Pendente Lite. I'm not saying it's right, but I've seen a situation where the child of the marriage was with one spouse. The spouse who left the union or left the marital home and stopped contributing, that spouse decided to take the child, uproot the child from wherever the home for that child is. And there's one thing that the court always do in cases of Pendente Lite Relief, and if it involves children, the status quo, if it's not maintained, what the court will do is make sure the children are represented by attorneys. The child will be entitled to have an attorney assigned to that child. Most likely, the parents are going to have to bear the cost of the attorney being appointed by the court for that child. And to bear that cost, usually, I think in various, depends on which county you're in. Some cases, sometimes the attorney fees starts at $5,000. The parent has to find that upfront and deposit it for that attorney to be appointed for the child. So you got to ask yourself, in a case where you're seeking Pendente Lite or there's dispute as to custody, a lot of times parents need to ask themselves, is it worth fighting over something like that? Or does it make more sense to allow the child to stay with the parent the child is more attached to, and the parent that is much, much able to deal with the situation concerning the child? Now, in a case where a child has lived for 10 years or more and been mostly with the father, it doesn't make sense for a mother to take a child away from the father, especially if the father's been raising the child. The child has been living with the father for a prolonged period of time. He's used to the father, and the mother comes and uproot the child just because she wants to avoid paying Pendente Lite. She just wants to avoid paying child support. In that case, it becomes a situation where an attorney will be appointed by the court. And, we can guess who is going to pay the cost for that attorney. Most times the court, the parent, the mother, who is the one who's trying to take the child from the father, if she's the money spouse, she'll end up paying the cost to get that attorney for the child. So a lot of times it makes sense to sit and deal with things on your own as people going into a divorce, going into any situation concerning a dispute. I think they're setting up situations in the court system now where even a divorce could be done amicable outside of the courtroom. And I think that would be a great idea if there's a system set up where divorces could be handled. I mean, I know a lot of counties has mediation for divorce cases so that you don't have to litigate every single thing, or you don't have to litigate anything if the parties can come to a peaceful resolution as to how they think their affairs should be wind up. Then there's no need to go to the court and have a prolonged litigation process where you're losing thousands of dollars in legal fees, and you also have to pay the mediator. And I mean, you even if it doesn't go to court, there's still costs, but at least the cost will be minimum if you go before a mediator and try to resolve your differences. There's a lot of things that people can easily sit and work out together, but I think a lot of times pride gets in the way of people dealing with their differences, their conflicts in this life. So once pride gets involved, nobody wants to sit at the table and to speak to each other. And I've noticed a lot of time in divorces, people are bitter, they're angry, they're upset with each other. They don't want to sit and talk to each other, and that often happens when one of the party was hurt. Most times where infidelity was involved, the parties become hurt, and then they don't want to speak to each other. They don't want to have a common sense conversation with each other, because it's the blame game. Each party is blaming the other as to why they're where they at. But to be honest, who cares how you get there? The main thing is how you resolve your differences. That is what really matters. And that is what makes the big difference in the whole scenario, in the whole grand scheme of things. I've seen situations where, people often wait too late to take steps to correct things. A lot of times they wait and they wait and they wait, and then it becomes an issue. It becomes a problem. It becomes a bigger burden. If you get to things early and you address it up front, you wouldn't end up in a big balloon problem once it takes a long time down the road to sort the issue out. I've said it over and over as it relates to people with assets. Do not wait 10 years after you separate to get a divorce. The reason is, I've said it here multiple times, if you don't have a separation agreement, do not wait for 10 years to decide, okay, you're going to go and try to figure things out before court, because by that time, a lot of time would have passed, things would have changed, your asset would have appreciated in value. And if you had done this sooner rather than later, instead of the asset appreciating in value, and then at that point you have to pay more to your spouse who you've divorced, you could have avoided this by addressing this upfront. And the Pendente Lite is a way to address things upfront, because as soon as you file the divorce, you can easily approach the court and said, like, hey, I need Pendente Lite Relief because, listen, this is not working. The spouse who has left the marital home is not contributing anything towards the home, and you need the assistance. You need the court to step in and say, well, the spouse who is left need to contribute towards either maintaining the children, or if the spouse who left is the money spouse need to contribute to the spouse who remain with the family, with the children, to maintain that household, maintain the status quo. I've seen a situation where my client, he was left with the one child while his wife ran off into the sunshine, and then the wife refused to pay child support. And after she realized what was coming down on her, she decided to abduct the child. And there's laws against abducting or kidnapping your own child. And the husband could have clearly utilized that, because the law does not permit for any spouse to uproot a child from the status quo. It must be a process, and there is one where the courts will block you or prevent you from taking the child or children of the marriage out of the state without first obtaining a court order, because that will mean you will be uprooting the child from their home, and that may not be within the best interest of a child. The court always acts within the best interest of the child principles, which means that the court is going to look to determine, okay, is the child, how long the child has been in the current school district, The child has friends. The child has ties to the community, ties to whatever organizations they're in. They've been living here for a significant amount of time. The court will take into account numerous factors, and most likely you would have to end up returning that child to their place of residence, restoring them to the status quo, whatever it was prior to the filing of the divorce. So people have to be very careful with that aspect of this. And then you do not want to incur legal bills. You don't want to incur fees in terms of paying an attorney to be appointed to your child. So the sooner you sit with your spouse and you guys come up with a way to settle things up, the better it's going to work out for you versus I say this multiple times. Do not put your life in the hands of no judge, because you know what? That judge does not have to live with the consequences of any decision. The judge can make an adverse decision against you, and the judge does not care, because at the end of the day, that judge goes home and their life continued the way it was. They don't care about the situation that they have made adverse to you, and they don't sleep thinking about what they've done or the consequences of those decisions. So I've seen in a situation where a man and his wife, they separated and he filed for the divorce. There was a big age gap between the parties. And I think this was really crazy because the man wasn't working for any crazy amount of money. Him and the wife, the income was not that far apart. But the judge, because there's a 20-year gap between him and the lady, and he'd been married for her maybe close to 20 years, the judge awarded non-durational maintenance to that spouse. And I think that is the most insane thing I've ever seen, because once he was ready to retire, that non-durational maintenance became a significant burden to him. I'm not sure, guys, because I wasn't there when the judgment was granted against him. And from the record that I've read, he represented himself. This is why I tell people all the time, do not represent yourself before any court, because you do not understand the law. You're not trained. And, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of instances where people familiarize themselves on the law. They studied it and they were able to, represent themselves properly before any court and succeed. So there are exceptions to the rule. But if you're not one of those exceptions, and there's a probability or there's a great likelihood that you're not going to be one of those exceptions because you don't like to read, and chances are you're not going to go research the law and figure things out on your own, then I beg you, do not go before a court and represent yourself, because you can end up making a mess. And once you make that mess, it's difficult to clean that mess up, because when an attorney steps in after you've created a mess, most of the times, if they can't clean the mess, then chances are you'll have to continue to self-represent yourself until the end of your case. So don't put yourself in a situation where you're going to create a mess and an attorney has to come in and clean up after you. The best thing to do is hire an attorney up front. Get the attorney to represent you and allow that attorney to do his or her job by making sure that whatever happens, that it works out in your favor or for your best or for your interests. Okay. Now, regardless of the outcome, as long as it suits your best interest, that's all that really matters. Okay, guys. Like I said, a lot of times some of these issues could be sorted out beforehand. It could be sorted out if you take the right steps, if you get the right advice, if you get the right people involved in your life to tell you exactly what to do beforehand. Guys, if you think you're going to be heading to a divorce or there's a chance of it, I plead with you, make sure you consult with an attorney first before you do anything. You can call our office. I always put the number there, 718-877-3100, in case you need assistance. You can always call and, assistance will be provided to you. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So there's no issue with you picking up the phone and calling for free consultation. Now, our office is located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're on Facebook. We're on, Twitter, you just give me a call. And if you need advice, that advice will be provided to you on a free consultation. We charge nothing for a free 15 minutes consultation to anyone who need assistance on a legal issue. Now, guys, I wanted to say, I just wanted to mention an issue real quick, which is kind of not related to the topic today, but I've seen recently the Bar Association, not that I know that the Bar Association in Ghana makes decision, because the Bar Association here in America does not make decisions as to a person's license. The license is regulated by the state, and then the state as a committee that oversights. Now, I see the Bar Association in Ghana has rejected two attorneys who wanted to practice before the courts in Guyana, two American or US-based attorneys who wanted to practice before the courts in Guyana. I'm not going to have an opinion as to whether or not the Bar Association has the authority to determine licensing. I'm not the one to do that, because Guyana has its own rules, obviously, as to how they run things and how they do things and how they conduct their business over there. But I do know that when I came to the United States, and every attorney who comes to the United States, you must qualify before you even get to take the bar exam. On the other hand, Guyana has no such thing as a bar examination that you require to take prior to admission to the bar. So I think it's kind of, and the two jurisdictions are sort of very, very different anyway. The common law in Guyana is more English based versus the common law in the United States. It's evolved. It's based a little bit off of the British law, but it has its own twist in terms of how the law is practiced. So I don't think anybody coming from the United States could just go to Guyana and practice, because it's two different jurisdictions and the law is so vastly different. I think maybe if Guyana implements something like a bar exam, something, and make it easier for those people to be admitted, maybe that would work, because I'm not sure what happens now, but I do know in the United States, people coming from common law jurisdiction has to have their qualifications evaluated first, and then the particular jurisdiction would determine whether or not you even qualify to take their bar exam. And once you take the bar exam, you still have to apply to be admitted. You still have to have recommendations, and you have to go through a whole process before you could even be admitted. So I think it would be crazy if Guyanese Bar Association, not even the bar, whoever is responsible for the admission of attorneys, the Attorney General or whoever, it would be crazy to just take someone from a foreign jurisdiction who doesn't understand your law, doesn't understand your jurisprudence, and admit them in to practice law. I think that would be a mockery, or it would make a mess of the legal system, since you got to learn the laws of the jurisdiction first before you can practice. I just wanted to say that because I saw it on the Stabrook News, and I even had the invitation to appear at the meeting that they had. They had a special meeting on the 28th regarding this issue, which I didn't go to because I still get emails from the Guyana Bar Association. But it's kind of, I guess, because of the oil and everything else that is going on in Guyana, people are wanting now to practice before the courts in Guyana. And I think it shouldn't be that. It should be easy, but not that easy. Okay. Anyway, guys, thank you for joining me today on today's program of The Law and You. Today we discussed Pendente Lite Relief. So I guess I'll see you again next Saturday at 4 p.m. sharp for The Law and You. And guys, don't forget to press the like button and to share the live. I always request that you share as much as possible, because that is what is going to ensure that the content gets to the right people. Press the like button and share. So anyone who's looking for Pendente Lite Relief, or anyone who's attempting to divorce and they're thinking once they decided they didn't want anything to do with the spouse, that they might be left hanging without any support from the spouse, they need to be aware that there's something called Pendente Lite Relief, which you can get pending your divorce action. As soon as the divorce action is filed, you can file a motion to ensure that you get child support and maintenance, spousal maintenance, if you need it, if it's required, if you're not self-supporting. And this is mostly in cases where the spouse has, there's a money spouse that has a significant amount of assets. All right, guys, once again, thank you for joining me again today on today's edition of The Law and You. Please share the live, and I'll see you again next Saturday at 4 p.m. Thank you.